7 is called the product rule, and the product rule that you should have written down says that the derivative of f of x times g of x, two functions that are being multiplied. We have not had a rule that tells us how to find the derivative of two functions that are multiplied together. Here is an example, okay? So I'm going to give you the rule, and then we're going to do an example right away. So let's say I have my function is y equals 2x times the cosine of x. That is my function that I want to find the derivative of. Here's what I need to recognize first of all, that this is a product of two functions. The first function is 2x. That is my f of x. The second function is cosine of x. That is my g of x. So I have a product rule problem. Okay? This is not something that I have a rule for yet. So the product rule says that in order to take the derivative of this, the rule is right after it. The derivative of a product is equal to f of x times g prime of x plus g of x times f prime of x. Now, what does that mean? Here it is in words. First times derivative of the second plus the second times derivative of the first. That's in words. This means take the first times the derivative of the second plus the second function times the derivative of the first. First d second plus second d first. Okay, you've got to memorize it. You need to memorize the rule. Okay, now, that's too many things for you. There's other ways that they write the product rule. So here's another option for this rule. It's the same rule, I'm just going to use different things other than f and g. Okay, what if to take the derivative of u times v? This is another common way that calculus books or videos that you might watch present the product rule, where u is the first thing and v is the second function. You have a product of two functions. Is that the same as what is written here?
Yes.
Except I'm just using different notation. That rule, the product rule, is u times v prime plus v times u prime. Is that still the same? The first times the derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first. So, I mean, you just need to say it in your head enough times. The first times the derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first. First d second plus second d first. Yes?
Okay, so if it was like 2x times 4x,
Then you would write it as 8x squared.
Okay.
See, if you had something like 2x times 4x, that would be a waste of time to use the product rule, because that's the same as 8x squared, and then you just use the power rule. Okay? But this you can't avoid. You have to use the product rule here. So we're going to use the product rule. So y prime is the first 2x times the derivative of the second. What is the derivative of cosine? Times negative sine of x. Now, watch, look, listen, pay attention. Why did I put the negative sine of x in parentheses? I don't want to think, when I look back, that it's minus the sine of x. It's times. Plus v, or the second, what's the second function? Cosine of x, times the derivative of the first, which is 2. Now, you will not get credit if you leave it in this order. You need to put it in the normal mathematical order, meaning the negative should go where in this term? Out in the front. So negative 2x sine of x plus 2 cosine of x. Do not try to do anything with the x's and the sine of x. That would be dumb. That would be totally wrong. This is your derivative. Sometimes you can simplify using trig identities. Yep, you might have to look those up. All right, so that's the product rule. Now we're going to look at a couple of other product rule examples. All right, so product rule examples. Let's see. Oh, this is a really good one. Let's say I'm going to find the derivative. Find the derivative. And let's say I have the square f of x is the square root of x times 2 minus x cubed. Then we have to do a triple product rule. So we aren't going to have triple product rules. Just to ease your, I mean, that's good to think about. It's a good thing to think about, but we don't typically, we've tried to figure out a different way. So, all right, so we are going to use the product rule here. So the product rule, what would be my first function? X to the 1/2. So x to the 1/2, I would first of all, yes, rewrite this. F of x is x to the 1/2 times 2 minus x cubed. So x to the 1/2 is my first. And what's my second? No. This function. 2 minus x cubed. All I'm trying to do, first of all, is decide what my first and second is, okay? My u and my v. My f of x and my g of x. That's all. I have to be able to separate what those are before I can use the rule. So now, f prime of x is going to be f of x times g prime of x plus g of x times f prime of x. See how that can make you confused a little bit? Isn't it just easy to remember first times the derivative of the second plus second times the derivative of the first? So write the first function down, which is x to the 1/2. Then times the derivative of the second, which is what? Negative 3x squared. Just using the power rule now. Plus the second, which is 2 minus x cubed, times the derivative of the first. What's the derivative of the first? Multiply by the 1/2. 1/2 x to what power? Negative 1/2. Okay, now this is kind of horrible, but I have to simplify it now. And I am going to have to get a common denominator. So here's the deal. You have found the derivative. This is the derivative. You're done with the calculus. Now we do algebra. So now I just need to simplify this derivative. So f prime of x, let's simplify this. Negative 3 x to the what power? You don't write 2.5. You write it as an improper fraction. 2.5 is right, but how do you write 2.5 as 5/2? Okay? Now here, well, what's on top? What whole thing? 2 minus x cubed is on top, and what's on the bottom? 2 and x to the what power? 1/2. Okay, so what would the common denominator be if I got one? Well, I have to get one. So 2x to the 1/2 is going to be the common denominator, so I'm going to write that under the whole thing. So in order to get a 2x to the 1/2 under here, what do I have to multiply the top by as well? 2x to the 1/2. Okay, so what is negative 3 times 2? And x to the 5/2 times x to the 1/2. What do you do with exponents when you multiply? Add them. What's 1/2 plus 2.5? 3. Isn't that nice? So this, do I need to multiply it by anything on the top? No. So I'm just going to write plus 2 minus x cubed. Are we done yet? One more step and our derivative will be simplified. What goes together on the top? Negative 6x cubed minus 1x cubed is, so I'm going to write 2 minus 7x cubed all over 2x to the 1/2. And I'm done. We can have radicals on the bottom here, by the way. So, what was the hardest part here? The algebra. Okay. So let's look at now we're going to learn the quotient rule. Okay, so the quotient rule. The quotient rule, the derivative of f of x divided by g of x. This is the rule that you wrote down. It says it is g of x times f prime of x minus f of x times g prime of x all over g of x squared. So you could rewrite this using u's and v's too. So you could let the top function be u and the bottom function be v. I mean, probably an easier way would be to use t and b. Wouldn't that be nice and easy? T for the top function and b for the bottom function. Would that be nice? So then you could say, well, it's top times the bottom prime, the derivative of the bottom. Sorry, that's wrong. It's bottom times the derivative of the top minus top times derivative of the bottom minus the, or divided by the bottom squared. So you always start on the bottom and end on the bottom. So top times bottom times the derivative of the top minus top times the derivative of the bottom over the bottom squared. And it is very important the order that you do it in here because of the minus. Otherwise you'll always get the reverse answers. So using the quotient rule, let's say I have f of x equals, thank you. Drake, this is counseling at once, it says, so I don't know. All right, so f of x is x squared minus 4 over x plus 6. All right, so this is the top and this is the bottom, right? Okay, so my derivative, f prime of x, I write the bottom down. It says bottom, just write it down. And using parentheses is really helpful here. I write the bottom down times the derivative of the top. What's the derivative of the top? 2x minus the top, which is x squared minus 4. Again, putting everything in parentheses is going to be very helpful so you don't mess up with signs or distributing. Times the derivative of the bottom. What's the derivative of the bottom? 1. You don't need to write times 1. All over, what are you going to do with the bottom now? Square it. Don't FOIL it out, just leave it like this. Okay? Now, we need to simplify now. Now here is a tip. Don't cancel. Don't cancel now. You're wrong. Write that down. Don't cancel now because you're wrong if you do. Some people get this great idea that they're going to cancel the x plus 6 right there. No. I have to multiply out the top, so distribute the top. So that'll be 2x squared plus 12x. And then distribute the negative here. So minus x squared plus 4. I'm just leaving the bottom alone. I'm not even going to mess with it. Isn't that what we've done so far? Don't mess with the bottom?